On this episode, I want to talk about Hanblecha, which is, for those of you who don't know, a traditional Lakota ceremony, one of the seven sacred rites of the Lakota Sioux. I want to talk a little bit about just the ceremony in general, the cultural context of it, the history a little bit, what it means, and how it works, what one does on the ceremony, and you know, I also want to talk about, I guess, in the second part of this podcast, I want to talk about the experience I had when I did the Hanblecha, um, which is a personal thing. Many people don't tell their visions, or maybe they'll leave it for somebody else to tell after they die, or they'll leave it written down somewhere, perhaps. Um, but I need to tell mine. Now now is the time. I may have waited, probably have waited too long to talk about what I saw, what happened. So Hanblecha, the Vision Quester starts, well in advance, at least a year, maybe could be well more in advance, leading up to the actual Vision Quest. Um, they are prepared, they're guided along by certain community members, most in particular a holy man or medicine person, or perhaps somebody who's both, who is trained in this regard. And there's some really great accounts of this in Thomas E. Mail's books. For example, interviews with Frank Foolscrow. He has a couple books with interviews of Frank Foolscrow. Also, his Sundancing book. There's many great resources out there on the internet. There's personal accounts and there's accounts about other people. Um, and Frank Foolscrow in particular, I think it was, who goes into yeah, it was into thought transference, certain abilities of Sassoon, of intellect, psychic connection with somebody that you really care about. Um, the way that he would transfer thoughts non-verbally to people, so that he was guiding towards their humblecha. It can be a coming of age ceremony, sort of like like a bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, or something. But I'm laughing because it's like a lot of the Lakota ceremonies. It's very physical. Um, I'll get more into why it's such a physical thing soon. But first, the Vision Quester is being prepared for a long time leading up to the ceremony, and one of the things they have to do beforehand is a simple task, a meditative task, in my opinion, of making 405 prayer offerings, tobacco ties. These are made in small and square patches of cloth of the four colors, of the four directions of the medicine wheel. Here's yellow for the east. There's white. I just happen to have these sitting right next to me here on the altar. There's white over there. I have a black one somewhere. Oh, maybe I took it out. But yeah, the four colors and the red. And then there's probably another couple of colors added at the end because there's 405 of these prayer ties. So 100 of each of the four colors, and then there's five more. So one of each, and then an extra color, which an extra color could be green for Grandmother Earth, or for initiation, or for the Great Serpent, or whatever it might be, to whatever clan or dream clan you may be part of or not be part of um, yet. And um, I just thought a memory of another. vision that I had at a different point in time the first year I was at Sundance. But that's a story for another time. About a buffalo dream, talking about animal dreaming. Anyway, the the white buffalo calf woman is who brought these seven sacred rites to the Lakota originally, including the Hanblecha. And the way that it's been set up with the being guided and the the chanupa, which is one of the sacred rites as well, receiving the vision of the chanupa, making the chanupa, getting the pipe stone, and making the pipe, putting them together, the sacred tobacco, doing the ceremony of the pipe, um, making the 405 stone white men, the powers that are spread out to the directions to help creators helpers, the 405 stone white men. And these prayer ties are tied along a cord, little, maybe a little thinner than this, and they get a little bit of the sacred tobacco in them. Could be kanik kanik or um, could be just straight up ceremonial tobacco, and they'll be wrapped around simply. Where did I put those cloths? And where did I put those little guys? I just had them. Oh well. Um, so they'll get strung along this string, which will be raveled up on a stick, so that it's all together. And then, excuse me. And then when the time comes close, the quester will make a few, about four at least, maybe more, tobacco offerings, larger tobacco offerings in red cloth. And these will be given to the person who, with the left hand, they will be given to the person who is to watch the fire for them. The fire cannot go out during the vision quest, which can last up to 4 days and 4 nights. Up on the hill. They call it going up the hill for this reason. You go up on a large, on a high peak, a tall um, cliff, something with a good view, an overview of um, a wide space and a clear sky, or a wide expanse of sky, I should say, not necessarily clear, because of course the Wakinyans, the Cloud Nation, always come to bring important messages, and those especially are heated, and the stars and everything are heated. Clear skies are not, are heated during the vision quest, the quest for the vision. You know, it's also an inner quest. That's why there's perhaps some soft crying. One is up there alone praying, without food, without water, unless it rains, perhaps. Some don't even drink the rain if it does rain. They refuse to. Others see that as a sign of from Creator that they're supposed to drink. Um, but first, before going up the hill, the community will gather and go through a purification in the sweat lodge. And the vision quester or questers, if there's more than one, will they'll have their heads covered with a towel or cloth of some sort during this time, so that nobody will break their concentration as they're going into the spirit world by looking them in the eye, which is also, a rule at the Sundance. Um, they'll speak, they might say something relevant to what they're going up for, what they're praying for, who they're praying for, something they need help with, or they might not know exactly. They might just be looking for that exact thing. It's not exactly. Eagle Bear also told me on the day that I asked him if I could do it. He told me no, flat out, you're not ready. Because I was trying to prove myself. Uh, and he obviously knew that, and I wasn't ready. I had just arrived and been, you know, put in my place by people that had more experience than me, and I didn't like it because I thought I was the most spiritual person around, uh, and I was enlightened already, and I wasn't yet, and I had a lot to learn. Um, so he told me, not yet. And in fact, let me talk about that for a little while. Let me switch gears and talk about that for a little while because what happened in my experience was is sort of a good way to understand the preparations. I was there all summer, and right before Sundance, my peers who had already been through the process had been through all the ceremonies maybe once or twice or a few times, or were further along than me in any case in all of this, and they would they could order me around when it was time to work. They knew more about everything than me, about the tasks, about the ceremonies, about the culture, about the language, about the songs. They got all the girls, and that wasn't really because of anything other than that I was shut off. My personality was like, yeah. That was the sound of my personality. Personalities could make a sound. Sometimes I've taken, certain substances and I've heard people's personalities and it's like it's like a toxic sound. Um, but anyway, so that was me for sure a lot of the time. And because I was feeling so insecure and I just like didn't know any other way to get what I needed, which is love and connection that we all need, which is normal and natural, other than to try to take it from somebody who already had it instead of trying to create it or generate it or call it or pray for it myself or whatever it is that a person does in a good way to receive these things, to earn these things, perhaps these blessings of life. Not things so much, but blessings. Could be things, could be relationships, which are not things. So, before I lose my train of thought, so I was feeling down and I wanted to prove myself, and I went with a couple of offerings of something to smoke on to Eagle Bear's house, and he was having a conversation with his partner at that time. He told me to wait outside. He acknowledged me. He was very polite, but he told me to wait outside. I went a little bit into the woods, uh, where he told me to wait near the Apache Lodge. He has this little Apache Lodge because he's not Lakota, he's Apache. So I waited there, and um, where he does his own little sweat lodges, or him and his partner will do a little lodge or something in the winter time, and it faces the opposite direction of the normal sweat lodge, and it's all a little bit different. But he uh he eventually comes out and it tells me to spark up the offering so we can counsel with the smoke and counsel together with the smoke, and I passed it to him after it's lit, and I started getting frustrated because he didn't pass it back, forgetting that I brought this as an offering to him so that he would come and counsel with me because I was the one who needed him. um but I couldn't quite figure out the depth of the dimensions of that need, what that really meant yet. Of course. So I was 22, 20. Yeah, I was about 22 at this time, 21, 22. And I said, I wanted to ask you if I can go up on the hill, which means can I go do my Hanblecha? And and he goes, you? No, you're not ready. Just flat out keeps puffing the thing. And I'm like, all right, so now I can't go. my entire this was going to be the moment, me arriving finally at this community. I was going to use this as a way to leverage myself into um, I don't know what exactly, but into like maybe fame or something where I was like recognized as an enlightened person or something like that. Um, and it didn't go well for me because I wasn't there yet. And that was painful at first to accept because I was lonely and I didn't want to spend time working on myself. I was so desperate for something now, then, now. But anyway, it's all in the past now. Um, so I finally thought of something to say to him. I said, right then he passes me the the lenya. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? Do I smoke? Do I tell him what I was gonna what to say, or do I smoke? Because it was about to go out. There's gonna be like one little hit, two little hits, maybe. Oh my God, man! He's always paying attention. Knows what somebody's doing, where their attention is, where it's not what they might probably do soon in the future. So I decided to. So the how do I learn? What do I do? Says, well, you need to spend time here. It takes, 4 years usually, traditionally 4 years to learn. And then you do your Hanblecha for 4 days, and then you go, you dance. If that's your vision, you dance, you Sundance for 4 days and 4 nights. Sundance, we'll talk about in another video. Um, and you spend usually about 4 years learning before you do your Hanblecha. This is just your first year. You've been here for just a couple of months. Um, okay, so he pulls out another offering, he lights it up, he starts puffing it down, passes it to me. I'm inhaling it, for the pain, emotional pain to my ego, the hit I just took to my ego. And I say, well, what do I need to learn? He said, you need to learn our culture, you need to learn our ways, you need to live like us, you need to, you know, learn our stories if it's in your heart to do so. And if not, then you need to accept that. If you can't handle the medicine, then you need to put it down, he told me. That was a key moment for me. Um, when I started to really understand that I was being trained for something, uh, for what I wanted in my heart, for what I was there for, even though we hadn't spoken it and I hadn't, signed a contract like I was used to. That was already understood. So anyway, there was some silver lining to these clouds, to these Wakinyans, and uh, I wasn't going to put the medicine down. Not forever at least, maybe for a time to see what it felt like. I did, but after Sundance, but not yet, not that day. Um, I said, well, what stories do I need to learn? Give me something to get started here, guy. He said, well, the White Buffalo Calf woman, for starters. She's the one who brought the ceremony, all these ceremonies to the people. You need to learn the story, and you need to learn the right story, not the Christianized version, as he always says, because that happens a lot too with these stories. They get filtered through even just by regular people, by a Judeo-Christian filter or a Muslim filter, whatever it might be, a Brahmic filter, Buddhist filter. I don't know. We all do it where it's like um, we put our culture on the other culture, and we should be mindful of that if we really want to understand. And if we don't really understand, then we're just I don't know what we're doing interested in these topics. We're just wasting our time because we're not really going to understand them. We're just going to create more division, more separation, which is hell, basically. So that's what hurts God's heart. So, um, He shortly after Sundance, when I went back to Maryland to, get back on the straight and narrow and get away from all this hippie nonsense and get a job, and I cut my hair real short. And I grew it out to donate it to Locks for Love, I think it's called, charity that donates hair to children that have cancer and lose their hair. And there's one thing I could give from my body that, I didn't have a lot of money to give. I could give hair. So what do I got to do? Grow hair? Yeah, easy. So I grew my hair, cut it, I got a job. Uh, I worked at a BMW repair shop near my parents' house for a while. But anyway, a couple years later, when I finally did Hanblecha, I had been studying now and living on the land, living partially in a teepee. Um, or did that come later? I think that came later. But I was living, um, I was living on the land for sure. It spent a lot of time in a tent, in a camper. I was living in a geodesic dome that they have for guests on the property there. This is um, out on the ceremonial grounds there, and I'd been spending a lot of time uh, with a brother of ours who had a rough life beforehand. I'm not going to say his name uh, in public, but without his acknowledgement. But he had had a very rough life, and he had been a rough person. Still was a lot, but he was changing his life with these ceremonies, as is wont to happen. It's kind of the purpose, and Eagle Bear, that was part of his vision and why he went to the place where he went to do these ceremonies specifically. So so it was him and me. We were the first ones of the year to go up. It was still a little bit cold, very cold at night actually, end of March, um, beginning of April around there, and it was starting to rain a little bit at night, get a little humid enough to rain, um, but still get cold on that high desert night. And I remember making the prayer ties in the mornings, and I finished in I think one morning or two, and asked Eagle Bear. He said, "You again?" Surprised, but this time he let me out, or ready enough at least. And this other guy was, he was much newer than me, and much more, I would say rough around the edges and dealing with a lot more issues, I would say, than me, perhaps, but perhaps not, depending on how we look at it or, what we value, where we come from, and so on. Okay, so the drawing I put up before the video started to fall, and I kind of lost my train of thought there, but we was talking about my brother who was going up with me and my opinion of him. And anyway, so we were going up together, and we were in the lodge with our heads covered, and some of the community there. Not a lot of people gathered yet. It's still so early in the season. Sundance isn't until, well into the summer. That's when everybody gets there. And we we went when it was time to speak. I spoke with this voice, like, just came through me. I can't explain it. I realized that I'd been holding back my real voice my entire life. And this is like sort of my real voice, but when I was sitting there on the ground in the lodge, there was nothing holding me back, and I just spoke freely. And I spoke to all the people there. I said, um, not to worry about me, and because I was strong, and I knew I was strong, and I had already been enlightened by this point. So I knew that I could handle anything life could throw at me, including death. Not that something wouldn't take me down. I'm not saying that I'm better than Jesus Christ who's crucified or somebody like that, any sort of martyr or anything. Um, but I knew that I could do it. I knew I could handle it, and I would be willing and blessed to be able to do that in a good way. I hope for that. I hope that happens in some good way. It'd be better if it's not necessary, but hey, whatever it takes. And anyway, uh, um, so James spoke his part, and I should have paid more attention to it. But he said his prayer. He was very humble. He was very humble. His prayer was very humble. He was emotional. He was fearful because he was going to be away from. There's nothing up there. You go up there with a sleeping bag, and if you have a prayer pipe, you go up there with a prayer pipe and some tobacco, and your prayer ties, and that's it. And you might have some clothes, you might not, and that's it. I didn't have any clothes, so I went up there wet out of the sweat lodge, and then it started raining, drizzling, so I did not get dry. So I took off my clothes and stayed under the sleeping bag naked most of the time, looking out at the night as much as possible. And surely there will be people who say that, you're not supposed to do it that way, but that was part of what I learned that day was not to listen to what other people say about what you're supposed to do because they're not you. So they cannot say, and you would be crazy. You would be out of your mind, literally, to listen to another person about what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to know what you're supposed to do, and that's why we do these ceremonies and get in touch with our Creator if we need guidance, and the spirits if we need guidance, and know what we're supposed to do. But so on the way up, what we do is we stop. We're led up by the community. Nobody looks us in the eyes, or we're still covered, so we're following their feet so we can see as we walk up the the hill, the foothill, the mountain, whatever it might be. In this case, it was pretty much a mountain. We were already up on a foothill, so going up a little bit onto this taller foothill slash mountain was didn't take that long, but it still took about 20 minutes the whole time because we stopped 4 times and Eagle Bear blew a conch shell to the 4 directions, stopping and doing one direction, one of the directions um, at each point. He didn't stop and play a One Direction song on the conch shell at each stop. That's not what I was trying to say. Like he didn't go and stop and say, "Okay, to the west direction." You don't know you're beautiful. That's not at all what happened on the Hanblecha ceremony. So that's not the right way to describe what happened. And I apologize for that. Misspeak on my part. That's not a word. It's now a word because I'm going to use it in this podcast and in future podcasts. Anyway, so he does that, we do that, and then we get to our Hochika, which is what we call it. In other communities, it has a different name. Hochika is like the community place, the gathering place, where the stories are shared to the younger generations and just among the community, I guess. So at the Hochika, 4 posts are placed strong enough to hold the prayer ties, which are unraveled, always clockwise. I don't know if the camera records everything backwards or what, but it's clockwise the way the Earth spins, the way the Earth rotates also around the sun. And we go into the Hochika and wait. They told me to face the west direction. They give different directions to different instructions to different people. And the West, of course, holds the significance of being that's West for me. Um, the black, the color of night, the color of the African nation, the color of our ignorance, the color of where we go to meditate. Ignorance is not something that we need to deny and say we don't have ignorance. Ignorance is a great thing, actually. It's a bad thing to deny reality. Ignorance, we're all ignorant before God because Wakantanka is the great mystery. God is infinite, and so nobody knows it all because it's just infinite. Once you know it all, boom, there's infinite things more to know, or whatever you can conceptualize about knowledge and wisdom and all that. Anyway, understanding and so on. Anyway, so so during the night, um, at a certain point, it started raining a little bit heavily, and I could hear my buddy over it. I couldn't see him, but I could hear him calling. He was very scared, and I could hear a drum down below, somebody taking care of fire, singing songs, and that would soothe our spirits a bit. But I couldn't let his state of mind go, and I blamed myself for it. I took it upon myself, and I realized that something was wrong, and I shouldn't take this new guy's thunder. And um, I don't know if I'm 100% right about that. This is just what I felt at the moment. I could be wrong, but um, during the night, I fell asleep. And this is when I had that vision. This is that particular vision that I wanted to share in this episode. That's when I had the vision. Um, this is going to take a bit of a twist because what I saw was, as I don't know what happened. Eventually, I fell asleep somehow, uncomfortable as I was, naked, wet, a little bit wet, mostly dry, but a little bit wet, naked under a sleeping bag, on top of a mountain where there are bear, puma, snake, spider, all kinds of bug, insect, all kinds of birds, but it's night now, so there's night animals out. Anyway, I didn't see anything at that. It was still a bit too cold. So I'd fallen asleep, and I woke up and I was in a dream, and I knew I was in a dream, but I couldn't get out of the dream. I had to go through the experience. So I went through the experience. I didn't fight it. And both of us, me and my brother over on the hill, we were going up a spiral staircase, and we were um, on our way to the top. And finally, eventually, it dawned on me we were going forever for a long time in this spiral staircase, and I'm wondering is the what is the point? What is going to be up there when we get there? And we get there, and it was like a modern apartment, chic, I would say, but not, in modern style, actually. Also, I would say chic doesn't mean luxurious. It's sort of the opposite. It's like minimalist in a way. Like you're only cool have if everything's like a little bit tiny and it's like, not nothing too fancy and maybe just not the convenience of that we grew up with in my family, for example, with paper towels and everywhere and never running out and endless Kleenex and all that sort of thing. Oh, I could use some, huh? Anyway, these are like more ecologically minded homes, apartments, and so on, we could say. And this ties into what I experienced because as we were getting closer, my brother is getting like he's making these like animal noises. It sounds kind of like I hate to say it, but he sounds kind of like a dog whimpering behind me and like a child. dog, like a toddler who's doesn't who's like regret in a regression. It's regressing. He does, can't express himself, and he's just sort of making these guttural sounds to try to express fear and discomfort and like a sense of something is wrong and something's going to happen. And so I'm alert because this was not normal. I've had dreams like this before when I was a child where my dog, in fact, was, um, now I'm remembering talking about this. Now that I'm talking about this, I remember my dog was barking in a circle. There was a stick stuck in the mud, and supernatural thing. And I was stuck in this dream and I was staring at this thing and I was outside of my body. My body was over there on the bed and I couldn't get back to that and I couldn't go forward. I don't know where I was trying to go. Maybe I don't want to know. And there was some weird presence in the room then. Very dark energy, like a demon. Bad spirit for sure. And, but we go in there anyway. It was inevitable. There was no other place to go. This narrow spiral staircase. We'd just gone up this huge flight. We're tired. We're exhausted. We need to rest our feet, our legs, drink some water, something, man. There's thirst. We could feel the thirst in our throats by now for sure. It's only been, you know, 12 hours, maybe less. Um, about that. Anyway, we go in there. James is just freaking out. He's behind me the whole time behind me, and it's a party inside. There's just everybody we know. Everybody in the world is there. Like everybody that's anybody is there. It's just packed, and this tiny little apartment somehow has more space than it should have, and more rooms than it should normally have because it's kind of a weird dream thing, and it's just endless people, and there's like this modern kitchen with one of those, I don't know what they call it, like an island, maybe they call it, a counter that's in the middle of the kitchen where there's and people are like leaning on that and they're talking and chatting and everything going on during um this party. And it's, I'm there. It doesn't feel right, but it's like, okay, a party's not a bad thing. Okay, so I'm just standing still, like, we have coats on, winter coats, and I'm standing there with my brother, and still behind me, our back to the door, not sure if we're gonna stay. The door looked like the door of an apartment that I lived in when I was a little boy, and but that's just a small little detail. I might have not that might not even be true. Anyway, sorry about that. Anyway, so um, what's for sure is that it started to dawn on me, whose party is this? Whose apartment is this? Is this place just rented out? And it wasn't fully clear, but surely the host or the center person, the center character of the event was a demon. There was no doubt. I could feel it. I could see it. I could sense it. It was a demon. It didn't look like a demon, though. And James was like freaking out. James knew it was a demon, but couldn't, verbalize it. And I'm getting like chills. I'm getting like really cold chills right now as I talk about this, actually. And so we put this coat on. So everybody, I'm looking around and nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. And if they do notice, nobody seems to care. And they're just drinking their little martinis and their alcohol. I don't know what they are. I don't know about drinks really. And I drink sometimes a little bit, but I try not to. I don't like to, and I drink very little when I drink for the most part. Special occasion. Anyway, they're all there, and nothing against drinking, but there was something about the event. I knew this represented at the end when right before I woke up, I realized that it was everybody, that it was society, it was human society, it was our nation specifically, United States, and our culture, and so what do I do? I'm here, and this demon comes sort of like slinking into the room and very charismatic. Is it tiny guy, tiny, skinny, uh, nerdy, intellectual. That's the key thing. Intellectual. Non-threatening. Non-threatening body, face, appearance, non-threatening. Clean cut, nothing like me, don't worry. No, but clean cut, nice glasses, nice, a bit like like a very young Bill Gates, a young, skinny Bill Gates, but in modern times. It was like Bill Gates' son that lives in a different world or something. And it was a demon, and it was the demon that's controlling, it was controlling everybody's minds there. And I could suddenly, when I thought about attacking the demon or doing something to stop the demon, to end the demon, is what I thought in some way, not in words. I saw people's eyes flashed like this, like they had no eyes almost. Like there's like a reflective thing, but they're like deep black, back, 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 forever, forever, forever. And it was very strange. So I knew that he was controlling their minds. He was somehow transmitting something. He had like a device on him too that was like a demonic technological cell phone device or something. I've seen stuff like that too in real life anyway. He was controlling people's minds. Anyway, there was only one thing to do, and so I just took this fist right here and I cocked back, and just before he had time to react or do anything, or anybody had time to do anything, there was a gasp and just clocked him one right, right between the eyes, right in the nose. Broke his glasses, sent him sprawling to the floor. And it looked like maybe like the demon came out of that person, and the person like came back to being normal, just like, oh God, oh my face, oh it's out of me, what happened, or something like that. And then I don't know, because at that point that was like the moment when I woke up. So that's the story, and I gotta go, man. I gotta end it there. But that's I've been reflecting on that for years. That was 2015, 2014, 2015, right? Yeah, I'll figure it out. I'll get back to you on that exact date, but it was around then. So it's been almost 10 years, and I've been reflecting on this and what's happened since then. And I hope that people who listen to this reflect on it too, and just watch out. Be careful, because things aren't what they appear. That's pretty much my reflection. In a future podcast, we'll go into topics like this deeper. Feel free to reach out to me and with questions, comments, your own experiences. Love to learn from you, hear from you. Please don't forget to support us, to subscribe, to like, all that sort of thing that you're supposed to do. It really helps us. We're just getting started, and this is this is what I'm doing. This is all I can do in life. This is who I am and what I do. So really thankful for your support. My family is thankful for your support, and I hope that I'm doing it all for everybody out there. So get it out there, share it, and watch Tay. I hope.